Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Tableau training for today. Today, we're going to learn how to use parameters. So first of all, I'm going to connect to a specific data source. I'm going to use the data source that comes with Tableau. I'm going to go and select the repository that comes with Tableau every time that you decide to connect to Tableau. So I'm going to go ahead and connect to Sample Superstore, which is the data that comes in there. I'm going to connect to my data source, and this is a retail company data source, and I would like to create a parameter that allows me to do certain type of analysis. For instance, maybe I'm trying to study the behavior of sales across time, so I'm going to bring in order dates and select, as we learned from previous trainings, our continuous months. So we can see the trend of sales across time. And then I'm going to use the combined axis technique that we learned before in one of our classes, so we can combine multiple measures in one axis. So we are going to provide a reference line that allows me to see everything that is before and after a specific date. So how do I do that? Well, I can do that through a parameter, right? So parameters are basically fields that are external to my database, but can be linked to my database in many forms. So I'm going to go ahead and create one parameter here. I'm going to create a parameter for with the date format for my axis here. I'm going to call this parameter date, and I'm going to pull the data from my date field called order dates. So basically, I'm extracting this field from my data source and filling my parameter so I can use it in on my axis. So how do I do that? Well, we know that we can bring in from another class that we had before. We can bring in our own constant line here. So I'm going to bring in a constant line. Let's create this constant line for our date and establish one date. Let's say 2017, and then let's take a look on January the 1st, right? So that's my reference line. So as you can see, if we use a constant line, this is steady. We can move it. But if we use a parameter that allows me to change this, I can actually go ahead and change the name. So I'm going to go and edit this reference line, and I'm going to bring in a parameter that allows me to control this reference line. So let's see how we can do that. I'm going to go ahead and select an aggregation, and then the value that I'm going to select is going to be my parameter date. There we go. And then I want to show I want to show the value so I can see the date that I'm looking. I want to maybe change the reference line to be a red reference line, maybe a little bit thicker. And I want to fill everything that is below and above my reference line, right? So now that I linked this parameter to my reference line, I can just show the parameter controls, and then I can allow people to control this parameter to change the different dates that I would like to select, right? So you can just click here. If you would like to maybe type in the date, you can just go to the parameter options and then select the option that you would like to bring. And in the same way of how you select your constant line for your reference line, now you can also do the same thing with the parameter. Just type in whatever date you want to bring in, and then you'll be able to move your parameter by typing in the date and see what happened before and after that specific date, right? So that is one use for parameters. Let's see, what if I would like to maybe add some analysis to this data? I would like to, since it's really hard to see the difference between these different months, maybe I would like to create a smooth line that allows me to maybe study the behavior of sales, maybe seasonality, and all that kind of stuff better. So how do I do that? Well, we have a table calculation that we learned again from another previous class, and we can create a table calculation called um, moving average. So I'm going to go ahead and select moving average for profit, and then moving average for sales. Okay? So I have to change the number of months that I want to use to create this moving average every time that I create this table calculation. But if I go and double click in my table calculation like we learned before when we were talking about table calculations and calculated fields, I have access to the amount of months that I'm taking in consideration in the past and also in the future. So let's say maybe I would like to have a parameter that changes this number. So it allows me to select the amount of months that I would like to look in the past. Well, I can easily create a parameter. Just go again to my data pane options, go to create a new parameter, and then from here I can create a parameter. Maybe this time it would be better to use an integer and say parameter months. Right? And then I can create maybe a range of values. So I can start with maybe 1 month and then finish with maybe 10 months that I would like to use. And the step size is going to be 1 month. And I'm going to go ahead and use that. There we go. So now I have another parameter that has the amount of months that I would like to look in the past. Right? I'm going to show this parameter. There we go. So I can actually change the amount of months. There we go. And now I just need to create a link between parameter months and my table calculation. So I'm going to go ahead, go in there, bring in this parameter, right? And then I am going to bring in another same parameter to this other table calculation for sales, right? Oops, something happened there. Let's just make sure that we have a comma separating this, and there we go. So now we have this two different table calculations basically linked by this parameter, and we can actually select the amount of months that we have in the past, right? Since we're using parameters, we can actually bring in this information to the title, which is a very useful thing to have every time we're using and changing our data or our analysis. So I'm going to say something like date equals the parameter that I have that is controlling dates, which is parameter dates. Maybe change or make this a little bit bold. Just make it bold so it's easier to understand what's happening. And then I'm going to say with the amount of months. I can say with a certain amount of months in the past or something like that, right? And I can also make that bold, and then the other letters can be gray, so we can see a difference between one and another, right? There we go. This one's going to be gray too. So now every time that we switch the date, we can see that the title is also changing the amount of months that we're looking in the past, and also the amount, the date that we are trying to reflect here. And again, if you don't like to type in the date, you can always use the slider. Some people like to do this better, right? It's a little bit faster. It's not as accurate as putting the exact date, but it allows you to see what's before and after a specific date. And also we can move and add more months to our moving average and see how is that reflecting some seasonality. And we can definitely see some seasonality here, right? Especially if you want to do some focus in the future. This is probably one of the first things that you want to do. All right. So that is one example of parameters. In the next class, we're going to see actually more examples of things that you can do with parameters. They're very powerful, and they combine a lot of stuff that we've learned so far in our virtual training. So until next time, thank you very much for joining me today. I'm happy to be your trainer.